Ujamaa, Ujamaa, I want to Ujamaa with you. Ujamaa, 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 I hope you want to Ujamaa too. Imhotep family, you're tuning into the Pro-Black Perspective on KWAZ Radio. We're going to read chapter 6. If you haven't read chapters 1 through 5, then I don't know where you've been, but we're probably going to read up to chapter 9, and then probably going to stop these daily readings. Tomorrow's chapter seems a little too long, not gonna lie, so I don't know if it's gonna be daily, but hope everybody's enjoying their time here. Author George says, and I hope you like jamming too. You know what I'm saying? To Ujamaa, bro. Just Ujamaa. All right. But yeah, that's it. I'm gonna just tell you guys, because you guys already been to this podcast, so I'm gonna remind you that we're part of a podcasting network called KWAZ Radio, and you know, there's obviously other shows that we want you to check out.
This is D Webb with the Harsh Reality Podcast, asking you to tune in where we tackle the news of the day that affects our community, only on KWAZ Radio.
Greetings, everyone. This is Koku from the Bitter Medicine Podcast, inviting you to tune in to the Bitter Medicine Podcast on KWAZ Radio.
Greetings, fam. Tune in to The Learning Curve with me, the revolutionary matron on KWAZ Radio.
You are listening to the Pro-Black Perspective on KWAZ Radio.
You know what? I realized that might have been incredibly loud. I don't even know. Hold on a second.
Radio.
Let's see. Author says, I'm at school doing professional development online classes. Hey, that's, you know, this topic, the purpose is man, sounds exactly like something relevant or related to people being at school. So, I mean, if you have an opportunity to check it out, check it out. By the way, if you don't know, not only was, Matron was on yesterday. She was reading some Jope. So definitely make sure to check out the replay if you haven't heard it live. And of course, I'm not sure what Tanzan is doing. I believe Tanzan should be doing something today. But, you know, if she shows up, we'll ask. Because I think she said that her time slot on Swahili Nation was taken. So I don't know if she shifted. I think she shifted. I feel like she's doing something today, though. So, well, let me see. Is it the 9th? Yeah, probably, most likely. So I'm going to try to rush and get that ready. Let's see if there's any more comments. No, so let's just go into it. The purpose is man. The Arusha Declaration is a declaration of intent. No more than that. It states the goal towards which TANU will be leading the people of Tanzania, and it indicates the direction of development. Neither on 5th of February nor on any day since has Tanzania suddenly become a socialist state, a self-reliant state, or a developed state. Basically, he's saying this was just a declaration. It's not. It's just an idea. It's not the action. You know. And it's like what the political party, you know, that's really what one of the things I really want to emphasize heavy in Africa is forming a political party, you know, like what Nyerere is able to accomplish here is because he built a political party, you know, or because he acted within a political party. The same with Malema. Malema sounds great, but it's that he did a political party, you know. That's how it is for a lot of our people, you know. Martin Luther King Jr., he's all right, sure, but then behind him is this like Southern Christian thing, whatever, this organization, you know. Kwame Ture, good brother, but again, you got SNCC, you know. Malcolm X, good man, again, you got the Nation of Islam. Like all the time, you have to see behind people, not just political organizations, but it's more important to have the political party. That is a party that can and does participate in the state. The same way how, you know, say what you will, when we talk about JFK, when we talk about Ronald Reagan, when we talk about Bill Clinton, Obama, whomever, we're talking about men in political parties. You know, there's a whole bunch of more radical more conservative men than Ronald Reagan. There are more liberal men than, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, whomever, right? It doesn't matter if you have a better idea than the next man, right? Doesn't matter if you have a worse idea than the next man. What matters is, are you a part of a political party, and what advancements is that political party making in your nation? And so with regard to our Pan-African cause, we have to get serious. I don't even like political organizations. That's one of the things I don't like about, our American centeredness, or our African American centeredness, really, in the sense that a lot of those men that we esteem were not a part of political parties. They were, some of them weren't even a part of political organizations. So Dr. King and Malcolm X, yes, they were part of political organizations, right? Technically religious, but whatever. Political organizations, right? But like Chancellor Williams was not. Amos Wilson was not. And Dr. Clark was not. Dr. Ben was not. That said, the impact that they could have had if we were behind them in terms of their political parties is phenomenal. Realistically, some people even say that one of the reasons why Malcolm X was assassinated was because of his indulging in a political party, a political organization. That organization being, I think it's like the AAU, Afro American Unity, I think, something like that. But like his, the OAAU, the Organization of Afro American Unity, right? But his, that's really what it is, and that's not like, I'm not gonna say that that's the reason why he was assassinated, obviously, but it's just important to realize that even when you pivot away from the religious organization, because that's what Nation of Islam really was, when you pivot away from that and say, look, I'm going to deliberately be about political gain, like I'm literally going to fight against the Democratic Party on their playing field, right? That's when the Democratic Party is like, we're not going to fucking protect your life. You know what I mean? So I really want people to get that. I know I spent like a lot of time on the first paragraph, but I want people to get that you want to be a part of a political party. And so, like I said, I plan on writing another book, and I think I should make that a highlight, particularly so that when we are, because like that's the failing of us as Pan-African nationalists. Like, let's say we agree with Chinwezu, we agree with him, sure, but do we have a political party suited towards his ideas? Because if we don't, then it's whatever. Whereas what you can say about Nyerere, you might say, oh, I don't agree with your concept, blah, blah, blah. This is the ruling party of Tanzania. And that's the difference. One of them is like, yeah, I like what Chinwezu says. He's not the ruling party of Nigeria, though. This man is the ruling party of Tanzania, and that's a huge difference. I hope people appreciate that. Arthur George says, do we want a political party that will be united across countries? That's true. That's what I want. Author Joyce says politics and the organizations cannot be ignored. Yeah, that's what I like. I want to write a book that's going to emphasize, hey, look, this is a political platform, and I want this across the continent. You know what I mean? Obviously, it's all just talk. It's all just rhetoric. But, sometimes talk and rhetoric are good because they're for communication. You know what I mean? Sometimes you have to communicate your ideas to the people who realistically, I don't know if you guys caught my last podcast. So I usually podcast on Sundays. It's called The Enemies Within. And I just reviewed some quote unquote African American elders who were just talking nonsense. Nothing to do with a political party. Nothing to do with industrialization. Nothing to do with anything. But they were doing this same sort of intellectual hustle for, I want to say, at least 20 years. And when I say at least 20 years, I don't mean that they were like fringe characters. These are central characters in the intellectual hustling of African people, and they've never been saying anything. So when I say, talk and communication, sure, you could say, well, you just talking, you just communicating too. But I want to put within the conversation something more deep. And I know that Chinwezu already did. I know Garvey already did, right? But it doesn't mean that efforts shouldn't be continually undertaken, because even if they ignore Garvey, even if they ignore Chinwezu, and even if they ignore me, it's important for our posterity to know that it's important for our posterity to be able to look back and say, oh, but you know what, we were trying, you know, and maybe someday it could impact some people, like Nyerere was starting off yesterday, where it can impact some people to the point where we or they actually do have responsibilities. They actually are running political parties. So I hope you guys appreciate that. Author says the great lack is organization and action. We have brilliant minds and plans. Exactly. You know, and that's why I really, part of me, I was confiding in somebody, and I was like, I just want to go to Africa and do some shit. You know what I mean? Like, I just want to go to Africa. I'm tired of being in the West, you know? Author says, as a teacher, we have the concept of an exit ticket. Our discussions are great if we add an action exit ticket each time. Yeah, exactly. Like that's what it is. Like, me personally, I just want to go to Africa and just like try my hand, you know, succeed or fail, you know. Sometimes, you know, like Author was talking about risk aversion, right? There's a huge risk in going to Africa, leaving your security in the West. Huge risk. But, you know, I could say this based off of lineage, you know, since we're talking about lineage matters. Like, my lineage is like people who just said, you know what, we're gonna go where we believe in. Or like, well, no, not where we believe in. We're gonna go somewhere. We're just gonna move. We're just gonna go. We're gonna leave. You know? Consequences be damned. Risk be damned. You know? I think when my dad came to, like a lot of people, you know, say, oh, I came to America with like no money, that type of shit. Like, that's what we do. So Author says, let's form the overarching international political party. Look, I'm gonna say, like, the thing is this. The issue is this. When we talk about international, we have to realize that you're not gonna form that political party in the West, in America. So yeah, that's why I'm reading this Wealth of Nations. I'm pressing myself to read this Wealth of Nations, because I want to have some sort of economic foundation when I write this, even if it's not this guy's. It's not going to be this guy's economic foundation, but, you know, he's given some good insight in economics that we don't really get as a people. You know, if you guys peeped what I was listening to from Kaba and Smalls, there was no economic foundation there. And that's like what, you know, most of our people will be listening to. You know, a lot of our people were there listening to that, handing in their money, all that kind of stuff. Like, and that's weak, you know? So yeah, but the thing with the overarching international political party is that I write this book, I need to put it on the ground. You know what I mean? I need to put it on the ground with people that can actually do it. Right now, it's like, it doesn't matter. I write this book and I spread it around Americans, right? So what? Like, they're not going to make their political party in America is not going to be able to do anything. You know? Author says, that's fine. It doesn't have to be Western based. We need to be comfortable joining, not always leading or originating. Yeah, I know, but I mean, me personally, I feel like I've done my research to contribute to the conversation. You know, like I feel like this reading of Ujamaa is probably not that different. Like, I'll say it this way: when I was in Ghana, a lot of people didn't read Nkrumah. You know what I mean? A lot of people have not and do not read Nkrumah. So I feel like, you know, Nkrumah did have some good ideas, and so, in that sense, like, I feel like that's what I can contribute to the continents. The fact that our ancestors had these great thoughts and they're not being communicated. One thing about the book Conscientism, I read it for everybody. It was not easy reading. The dude, like, he didn't understand to write it simply, you know? Anyway, let's keep going. So the Arusha Declaration could not achieve these things, and nor would it have been possible for any amount of enthusiasm and energy and implementation to have achieved them in the months since it was adopted by our party. The Declaration is the beginning, not the end, of a very long and probably extremely hard struggle. It is necessary that we should be very clear about these things, for otherwise we shall fail to reach the goals stated and shall be liable to do great things to our nation. We must understand fully what the Arusha Declaration is, what it says, and what it implies for the near as well as distant future. We shall remain Tanzanians. All right. So the Declaration is, first of all, a reaffirmation of the fact that we are Tanzanians and wish to remain Tanzanians as we develop. Certainly, we shall wish to change very many things in our present society, but we have stated these changes will be affected through the process of growth in certain directions. The growth must come out of our own roots and not the grafting onto those roots of something which is alien to our society. This is very important, for for it means that we cannot adopt any political holy book and try to implement its rulings with or without revision. It means that our social change will be determined by our own needs as we see them, and in the direction that we feel to be appropriate for us at any particular time. We shall draw sustenance from universal human ideas and from the practical experience of other peoples, but we start from a full acceptance of our Africanness and a belief that is our own past. There is very much which is useful for our future. I'm just going to read this next one, and then I'm going to go back to the comments. Commitment to the quality of life. A Arusha Declaration is also a commitment to a particular quality of life. It is based on the assumption of human equality, on the belief that it is wrong for one man to dominate or to exploit another, and on the knowledge that every individual hopes to live in society as a free man, able to lead a decent life in conditions of peace with his neighbors. The document is, in other words, man-centered. Inherent in the Arusha Declaration, therefore, is a rejection of the concept of national grandeur as distinct from the well-being of its citizens, and a rejection, too, of material wealth for its own sake. It is a commitment to the belief that there are some more important things in life than the amassing of riches, and that of the pursuit of wealth clashes with things like human dignity and social equality, then the latter will be a given priority. So, again, this is pretty straightforward. We read the Arusha Declaration. For in a Tanzania which is implementing the Arusha Declaration, the purpose of all social, economic, and political activity must be man, the citizen, and all citizens of this country. The creation of wealth is a good thing and something which we shall have to increase, but it will cease to be the moment when wealth ceases to serve man and begins to be served by man. So, again, so that's why I liked about this Wealth of Nations, right? So how do you say this? So basically, the way how he's kind of quasi historical, kind of quasi. By the way, Tanzan, what time are you going to be on? Greetings, Tanzan. But he's kind of quasi historical. He's kind of quasi, Adam Smith. He's kind of quasi historical. He's kind of quasi scientific, right? And what he's alleging or asserting is this, right? That even with the equality of income, if that were a thing, even with the equality of income, some human beings, right? So this is gonna go to Arthur Joy's, other question about who's successful, who's risk averse, all that kind of stuff, right? Realistically, what one of the words, I don't use it, but it's a word that people know about. It's like parsimonious or something like that. Parsimonious, right? And I think and there's prodigal and there's parsimonious. Okay, so apparently Christians know about prodigal. Okay, apparently, because I remember I was telling somebody who studied Christianity, studying Christianity, who said something along the lines of, peace, Brother Bakari, who said something along the lines of, there's this story called the Prodigal Son. And so the Prodigal Son story, I don't really know it, but I think the explanation was something like, there's this boy who he'd spend a lot of money and he was wasteful, and yet when he was unlike his other brother, and when he came back with his family, even though he was a wasteful, he was considered, he was celebrated and all that, celebrated and honored, and the other brother was jealous of that, right? And so EL says, hi everyone. So that story of prodigal versus parsimonious, what Adam Smith is saying, right, is something along the lines of, well, if prodigal people do not advance the economy, right? Prodigal basically means people who are, just spend a lot of money, so on and so forth. And he's like, who does is parsimonious people, right? And parsimonious people. So Arthur Zoyer is familiar with the Christian faith. So he says, received his inheritance early and squandered it, yet was welcomed back. Yeah. Whereas he's like parsimonious people who are cheap, people who actually have savings, will sometimes use those savings for their own profit. And that's how wealth is built in a community. And so what happens is that this is not necessarily true. It's not necessarily complete, although what happens is that, and Adam Smith kind of outlines different ways in which, let's say how people could become prodigal. Like if you get wealth too fast. So he's like, Spain and Portugal, for instance, you got wealth really quickly from the colonies, right? But they just spent it like idiots. And so he was like, they never even developed their industry. Whereas he was like, for at least England's case, the wealth wasn't as quick as it was for Spain and England. And then what happened with that was, like, even though it was faster than it was for the Dutch, he was like, it was just enough so that they actually continue to, especially with their relationship with America, they continue to develop their industry, so on and so forth. So why I'm saying this is to say that, different individuals, just like different nations, can acquire wealth and then use that wealth either in a prodigal way, right, or a parsimonious way, right? How Arthur was describing parsimonious, he's like in a judicious, thrifty, and industrious way, right? But the fact that different individuals can do that, right, is going to, regardless of the quality of income, create a inequality of wealth. You get what I'm saying? And I gave this example, and so if you guys know the particular podcast that I did, to Ask Me Anything, right? I gave an example of like my own family where authors was talking about inheritance and so forth. Like where each of my brothers, like after my mother passed, we each got like a nice, we got an inheritance, right? And we all spent it differently. And one of my brothers did spend it on drugs. On hard drugs. So even though we all kind of, had the same amount of money in that sense, or the same amount of savings in that sense, one of them spent it on hard drugs. And so what happens is that if you're going to say, well, who's going to develop the economy? Who's going to develop wealth in the community, right? It's probably not going to be the one who spends it on hard drugs, but he has every right to spend it on hard drugs because it's his money. And because it's his, Tanzan, you can't be, the importance of political party behind ideology, lone wolf scholarship is not effective. Yeah, Tanzan, you can't, hold on a second, I'm sorry, Tanzan, you can't comment on things that are too, all right, whatever, who cares, okay. All right, so anyway, you can't get you can't do that. That's the thing. It's just realistically, we should welcome the wealth differential. You should welcome the idea that, if 5 farmers get even a small amount of money, right? But one of them is really parsimonious and one of them is really prodigal, right? The parsimonious one, right? The cheap, thrifty, industrious, judicious one is probably going to be able to save up enough money to get their own farm, to get their own workers and then work other people. And then if that happens over generations, right, then you're going to have a wealthier class of people. You get what I'm saying? And so, obviously it's not, a direct correlation between who's wealthy today versus who was wealthy yesterday based off of the different spending in their own country, because obviously a lot of their wealth was, as we would call it, stolen, right? But I mean, it is a interesting concept nonetheless, especially when we as African people then begin to try to promote an idea that, let's equalize wealth, when wealth is just like what does that mean in terms of well, what if I want marijuana, right? What if I want alcohol? Like, what if I want to get drunk every day? What if I want to whatever every day? What if I want to, have sex with prostitutes every day? All right, so that's okay, right? Now, but what if I don't want to do that, right? So if one person does want to do it, one person doesn't want to do it, why wouldn't the person who doesn't want to do it have more wealth? I mean, I could say it this way, in fact. When I was in grad school, right, we got a small stipend, okay? We got a small stipend of it might have been like, I don't know, like $20,000 a year. I don't know. It was a small stipend, right? Here's the thing. All of my classmates who happened to be white, obviously, but all of them were complaining how they didn't have, the stipend was so small. It was just not enough money. But the thing, and I was like, shit, I'm good. Now, obviously, that could be because I'm black and I'm just like, whatever, right? I was like, I don't give a shit. Like, money's like, whatever. But like, rent was super cheap. It was like $400 a month or something like that. It was super cheap and all that stuff. Well, for me, you know what I'm saying? So because I got cheap rent, right? So do the math. $400 a month, is, I don't know how much a year that is. I guess you would times it by 10. So you got $4,800, right? And then I also got food. I think I cooked food or something, or even, food might have been like $10 a day or some shit like that, right? You do all that, and then you're left over with like $10,000 a freaking year. And the reason why I could be left over with that is because I didn't smoke, I didn't drink, I didn't party. You get what I'm saying? So I just had surplus. Now, the people who were complaining about how small the money was, they were buying cigarettes all the time. They were buying alcohol all the time. And that's their freedom. That's their prerogative. But the difference is that if I'm stacking, and it's not a lot of money, if I like the reality is this, if I started earning, let's say 6 figures or something, and I'm still just living on a $10,000 life, right? If I'm still just like have a freaking roommate because I don't give a shit, $400 or whatever, I'm going to be stacking 10 figures a year. Sorry, it's not 10 figures. 6 figures a year. Now, I didn't make a 6-figure salary. I'm just saying that if that were a thing, right? I would just be stacking 6 figures because I don't have any expenses. And so if I were in a society where, I just limited my expenses, I didn't care about living with roommates, I didn't care about living in my own little room, all that shit, right? And I was stacking money. You know what? She wrote down high EL, and that shit don't even look right. It's like heal. Anyway, so Dan wrote that. So if I'm just stacking figures like that, right, then I would have surplus. Let's just pretend 100,000 a year, right? Surplus. And so now what Nyerere or the socialists are going to tell you is that you can't do anything with that. If you want to buy cigarettes, that's fine. If you want to buy drugs, that's fine. But if you want to buy stocks or if you want to pay somebody to do some work for you, that's not fine. And for me, that's like it's misunderstanding what happens normally from economics. The fact that some people can actually save even from a little bit of money. And that some people may actually learn to do things that are worth a lot of money. If I had continued the professor route, I would have been a professor. I don't know if professors make 6 figures. They probably don't. But I would have been a professor. And so even if I only made, let's say $60,000, but I still had, I still had a pay, I still only had like $10,000 a year to spend on myself, right? I would have still been collecting maybe half as much as I would if I were doing 6 figures, but I would be collecting. So it's just like, what do you do with that? What do you do with the reality that if somebody doesn't smoke, somebody doesn't drink, somebody saves money, what do you do with the reality of that in one of these economies? And that's realistically one of the things that is not being considered in these conversations. But like, that's why I said I appreciate, not appreciate, but that's why I said I recognize what Adam Smith was saying, because it is an interesting concept that we don't really talk about or hear enough. Just the reality that if you're an unmarried person, like now that I have a kid, obviously I have to spend money on the kid and all that kind of stuff. But if I didn't have a kid, you know what I'm saying? Then I wouldn't, like, I would like, everything would be cheaper. Like my whole life would be cheaper. Author George says, it's never his money. It's never our money. We borrow from the collective for a time. This idea of possession, you don't even possess your own life. Your children care for you eventually. Never whose money? Oh, you talking about if he doesn't spend? Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, technically, we'd be like, hey, you get rewarded for your labor. So like when I was in grad school, we were getting a stipend for doing the TA work, right? So the teacher is like, basically we were assisting the professors in their classes, like either grading papers or so on and so forth. So the idea is that you would get some pay for that. Not that it's the idea is that you would just like be compensated for your labor, but the only question becomes, what do you spend your money on? And usually most people have some sort of addiction, but if you are one of those individuals who don't have addictions, like, I'm not going to hold you guys, I wasn't even dating women, you know what I mean? So if you're not dating women, if you're not smoking, if you're not drinking, if like you're just gonna have like every piece of money is just gonna be money in your pocket because all you have is rent and food, you know, and like the money that you get is more than enough for rent and food, even if it's a little bit of money, you know, because especially if the rent was like with roommates and stuff. EL says Kwame Ture says that every great leader had a organization around him. Exactly. EL a learning curve says I don't know if wealth can ever be equalized, but opportunity within an African society should be equal among Africans, and there should be a minimum standard of substance provided to everyone. Yeah. Yeah, that's the thing. But like that's what I'm saying though. Like what happens when even with an equal income, you're still gonna get, like you said, like yeah, wealth is gonna be still differentiated, and then the question just becomes, what are you gonna do with that wealth, or like what do you have the opportunity to do with that wealth? You know, because if your wealth does, like, if your wealth can't do anything for you, like, because I think like at that point in time, like I said, like I'm collecting money to the point where I just have a bunch of money in my bank account and I have nothing to use it on, like nothing to use it on, you know. And technically, like I didn't know about stocks at that point, but technically if I yeah, it's like what do you do? Like, what do you do with money if you don't have any addictions? You know what I mean? Like to a large extent, money just kind of like suits your addictions. But if you have no addictions, what do you do with it? You know? And because I didn't really care for money like at that time, I kind of just, you know, like the first thing I did, in fact, realistically, when I first got money, I just bought my family, like my mother, a washing machine and a dryer. Like, just like that. Just like, you know, I was like, yeah, sure. I mean, I'm not going to do anything with it. You know what I mean? And so it's just like, yeah. But then here's the thing. Like, what if I had bought a laundromat? You know? You get what I'm saying? Not that I had that much money. I'm just saying that, like if you just have money in the bank, like it's just sitting in the bank, what do you do with it? EL says the equality of opportunity is hard to reach because of inheritance. We must establish a floor, however. A certain amount of resources should be considered decent, and a child should have no less. Yeah. No, I'm perfectly fine. I think that's like the thing is, I feel like Western societies already have a lot of that. Like they call it like Social Security kind of thing. I mean, obviously it's not high to some people, but again, like part of the reason why it's not high to some people is because we also, you know, recognize that people have addictions. You know what I mean? So yeah, like we recognize a lot of people have addictions, and I think that's partly why we think that the money isn't high, you know? And like sometimes we also like go above and beyond. Like I said, like the situation that I was living in when I was in grad school was like I had like roommates, like Chinese roommates. I was in like a whole Chinese community. You know what I mean? Like a whole Chinese community. I was because I was like the cheapest rent, you know? I was eating like in the cafeteria of a hospital. And I think I had some groceries. I'm not even 100% sure. I think I was using like public restrooms, no cap. You know what I mean? Like, well, because my roommates were just disgusting, where you couldn't even, like, they never cleaned the toilet. So it was just like, yeah, I'm not using that. But I was like, obviously I didn't drink, I didn't smoke, I didn't date. You know what I mean? Like if you're living that kind of life, like I guess they call it like ascetic life, you know, it's not like you could do that on little bit of money. You know what I mean? But like most people are not. Like when we talk about the floor and all that kind of stuff, like a lot of us start talking about, you know, like you have your own 4-bedroom household or something. You know, you have a 4-bedroom household, you got your video game console, you got your video game, you know, like I didn't have any video games even when I was in grad school, you know? I legit, like I had a laptop, I think. I'm not even 100% sure if I had a laptop, you know? I think I had a phone. But like, yeah, like it depends. Like when we start talking about, well, what is the basics? You know, a lot of us, you know, there's a lot of us are kind of like of the opinion of those people who are like, I can't survive on anything less than $4,000 a month. You know what I mean? Which is fine if you to feel that way. But again, like for me, like when in grad school, like I didn't even buy clothes. And we went to like the grocery store like once a week or something like that. Yeah. It was a different life, but you know, most people wouldn't take that kind of life. You know, like I said, even the white people who were next to me were like complaining that we didn't get enough money. But me, I just had like savings. So it really comes down to as well, like, what is your personality type? Like, are you prodigal? Are you parsimonious? Like, are you okay with taking public transportation? You know, are you okay with that? Because some people aren't. Some people are like, hey, I need my car. I need this. I need that. I need, you know, it's, you know, we say we want the basic floor, but what is the basic floor? You know? Like, what is that? Is it you have your own car? Is it that you have your own, you know, so on and so forth? Because if it's all that, then it becomes, well, you know, you get what I'm saying? Like, is it that you can afford your drug habit? You know what I mean? All right, so freedom must be maintained. With our present level of economic activity and our present poverty, this may seem to be an academic point, but in reality, it is very fundamental. For it means that there are certain things which we shall refuse to do or to accept, either as individuals or as a nation, even if the result of them would be a surge forward in our economic development. With our present level of economic activity and our present poverty, this may seem to be an academic point, but in reality, it is very fundamental that freedom must be attained. Okay, for it means that there are certain things which I shall refuse to do or to accept, either as individuals or as a nation, even if the result of them would be a surge forward in our economic development. For example, even if it were true, which I do not believe, that we could achieve a very great increase in the statistical national wealth and the income of the majority of our people, we would still reject a proposal that a single foreign country or a group of individuals should establish a complex of agricultural estates, heavy and light industries. So basically, you know, don't invite foreigners to do this shit. We would reject such a proposal because of the effect upon our national independence, and because large numbers of our people would become the paid servants of another nation or another person. The destiny and the whole life of the people of Tanzania would, in such a case, be controlled by another country or by a few individuals. Either of these things would be inconsistent with our commitment to Tanzanian freedom and to the freedom and human equality of all citizens. So again, like, you have money, you're in the West, I guess, you have money. What can you use it for? And it's like, if you can't use it to make more money, then what's the point of it? You know, progress by evolution. And then, like, how does that inability to use your own money to make more money, right? How does that, it's just kind of like, it's just a misunderstanding what wealth is for. You know what I mean? Like, it's misunderstanding wealth building in the sense that, well, if people are not motivated to use their wealth for whatever, sure, they can buy commercial products, but why is anybody even selling commercial products if they can't profit from it? You know what I mean? Like for instance, the washing machine and dryer that I bought, like, the washing machine and dryer that I bought are inferior to the washing machines and dryers of today, right? But why would you improve on the design of the washing machine and dryer if there's no profit behind you improving on it? You know what I mean? Yes, there's no profit on you improving on it. Like when I was in Ghana, I was like sweeping the floor, you know, because I clean the rooms before I get there, right? Before I go inside, I'm sweeping the floor, and the dustpan is such a inferior design to the point where it's difficult to even sweep into the dustpan, you know. And so in America, the dustpans kind of like curve downward and have a head, you know, they make sure it's flat and all that kind of stuff. And in Ghana, it was just some hand-me-down poor design. But the question is, why would they have a better design if, like, why would somebody, like, even if you could design a better design, why would you produce and market and sell it to other people if you couldn't profit from it? You know, why? Just why? And that's realistically what the profit incentive is that, you know, sure, if I know how to make a better dustpan, right? Or I know what a better dustpan design looks like because I'm in the West and I could just go there and do it. But why would I purchase a factory? You know, why would I purchase a factory and like, because the factory is going to cost me a bunch of money. You know, and then I would have to sell it at what cost? I don't sell it. Like, what is the point of me? Because like a factory is like $10,000 fucking dollars, right? Why would, or maybe it wouldn't be that much, but you know, but yeah, like it'd be like $6,000 and I can't hire anybody. You know, it's just. I'm saying that what happens is it's like, I hope you guys can see what I'm saying, but it's like tearing down the fence without knowing why it was up there. You know, why do you have people paying other people? Because if I get a $10,000 factory, I'm not going to work it by myself. You know, like that just doesn't even make sense for me to work it by myself. We would reject such a proposal because of its effect upon our national independence and because large. Oh yeah, I think I read that one. Either yeah. So progress by evolution. Actually, let me see what the comments are like. Let's see. Learning curve says money, wealth always provides options. We need to use those options to cultivate better Africans, better technological advancements, and trade opportunities. We can only share opportunities and resources when we realize that we have a shared identity and destiny. Yep. And then EL says, when foreigners come work in our country, they don't transfer knowledge to us. They will keep us dependent on them. Yes, sometimes. Sometimes, definitely. See, progress by evolution. This does not mean that we have in any way accepted our present poverty. On the contrary, the Arusha Declaration calls for a tremendous human effort for change. We are saying that what has taken the older countries centuries should take us decades. What we are attempting is a telescoped evolution of our economy and our society. This is not a sociological, even biological impossibility. It has taken hundreds of millions of years for life on the earth to develop from simple living matter to the complicated and interlinking cell structure, which is a human being. Yet a human fetus develops from one to the other in 9 months. The national growth of our country can be telescoped and yet remain organic. It will take more than 9 months, but the union of our people and our land and the light of the human knowledge available in this century can certainly shorten very considerable the period during which countries like the United Kingdom or United States achieve their present affluence. Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. Like sometimes we say that kind of thing, like it took them 400 years to colonize us, and therefore it's going to take us 400 years to get out of it. It's like realistically, no, you don't have to take the same amount of time. Of course, we're not even trying, but you know, it is what it is. The integrated program based on linked principles. The other important fact about the Arusha Declaration is that it is the integrated program of action based on linked principles. There are some people who would like to support the call for national self-reliance, but have strong reservations about the socialist doctrines and especially the leadership qualifications. There are others who claim to support the socialist aspects, but have reservations about the statement that Tanzania must depend upon its Sorry, let me read this. There are some people who would like to support the call for national self-reliance, but have strong reservations about the socialist doctrine, especially the leadership qualifications. Yup. There are others who claim to support the socialist aspects, but have reservations about the statement that Tanzania must depend upon its own resources for development and act accordingly. There are still others, people who have tried, usually with ulterior motives, to interpret it as an anti-Asian or anti-European document, or who criticize it on the grounds that it supports the interests of these groups against the interests of black people in Tanzania. But the truth is that it is not possible to accept socialism without self-reliance, or vice versa. And it is not possible to talk racialism while still claiming to accept the Arusha Declaration. So that's pretty interesting. Again, you know, he's talking about the different like critiques and things he's heard. So what's interesting is this. So basically what he's saying is this. There was probably some African who sounded just like me. You know, who was like, hey, you know what? A lot of these socialist doctrines, I'm not with it. I have reservations. I like the idea of self-reliance. Okay, I like the idea of national self-reliance, but I have strong reservations about the socialist doctrines. And I don't like these ideas of the leadership qualifications, because you guys heard me say that, right? And that's what's so beautiful about our ancestors, is that we were here. You understand? Like our ideas that we already have, they were already here. Or you have other people who are like, you know what? This, you know, we criticize on the grounds that it supports the interests of these groups. Like we think that this document, Arusha Declaration, supports the interest of Asians and Europeans against the interests of black people in Tanzania. We were saying this. But here's, again, you go back to the beginning. Here's the difference. Nyerere is running the political party. So it doesn't matter if you're one of these people. It doesn't matter if you have strong reservations about the socialist doctrine. Like, just like right now, it doesn't matter because Nyerere, this was like written in 1967. I wasn't even born. It doesn't even matter. The point is that even our ancestors who were there, who were like, hey, you know what? I have, you know, well, how are we going to build wealth if, you know, how are we going to, you know, well, why are we including Asians and Europeans when this is our land? We were here. But the difference is that Nyerere is leading the political party. You have to contribute to the political party. If you do not contribute to the political party, you will just be a footnote like these ancestors before us. These nameless ancestors before us who had strong reservations about the socialist doctrines, we don't know who they are. They're nameless. They didn't earn a name. Who earned the name was Nyerere. Because he did the damn thing. And that's what we have to do as a people. We have to do the damn thing. You know, like I said, I'm really excited to go write my next book, but you know, I'm like neglecting to read. So let's see. Author Joe says socialism is like Christianity, best approach like a buffet, and at that point, it's no longer Christianity or socialism; it's just wisdom. Yup. Although you got me saying yup to Christianity. All right. So when foreigners go, yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, yeah, like be critical. You know, there's this African proverb, one of my favorite African proverbs. Well, I don't know if it's an African proverb. I'll be honest with you, but it's like one of my favorite kind of wisdom from Kemet is like I said, this white boy goes to Kemet and he tries to interpret it, and so he comes out and they made it seem like they were proverbs from Kemet, but in retrospect, I realized they weren't. Because I think some brother was like, where did you read that? Like, where are the hieroglyphs for that? And I was like, oh, shit, you're right. There were no hieroglyphs for that. So, you know, take it with a grain of salt. But I think the quote goes, I'll show you guys. Why not? The quote goes, it says, there are two kinds of error. Okay? There are two kinds of error. And, you know, this is once upon a time when I did my meetings, my weekly meetings, we would read this like every 2 months at least, right? Or thereabouts. But I said there are two kinds of error: blind credulity and piecemeal criticism. By the way, all of these are republished in the book of in the Pro-Black Compendium. For those who don't know. So, all right. So there are two kinds of errors: blind credulity and piecemeal criticism. Okay. It says never believe a word without putting its truth to the test. Discernment does not grow in laziness. Okay, and this faculty of discernment is indispensable to the seeker. So check this out. Sound skepticism is a necessary condition for good discernment, but piecemeal criticism is an error. So he's like, look, there's two things. When you're blind credulity, that means, hey, socialism is the way, right? Or hey, Christianity is the way, so on and so forth. That's an error all the time. You blind credulity is an error. And I think he said piecemeal criticism. I'm guessing that is maybe what I'm doing. I don't know. But no, I don't know what it is. Piecemeal, like I have to look it up. I forgot. But well, not that I forgot, but now that I realize I don't know this word anymore. But I'm guessing like that's just like poking holes in something sometimes. I think they're saying that's an error too. Now, I think he's saying now never believe a word without putting his truth to the test. So realistically, that's the more important part, where it's like never believe a word without putting this truth to the test. Discernment does not grow in laziness. So I mean, like piecemeal criticism, I guess too would be like, oh yeah. So the example I could show is that, you know, when we talk about Newtonian physics, the equations for gravity does not work for a lot of objects in the universe. You know, like not just on the microscopic level, but it doesn't work for Mercury. So if you guys know how so basically the Newtonian physics will tell you that Mercury should have a perfect orbit, but Mercury like orbits in a retrograde. So it's not a parabola, but it's like a weird ass, you know, like it's a weird ass shape. So, so you like, if you would just be like, oh yeah, well that's why blah, blah, blah. Like that's the trouble, you know? Either way, Like, because the thing is that it works for, you know, most other things. Like it works for Earth, it works for so on and so forth. Now, obviously, it does inspire people to investigate relativity, and that would be more of an accurate way of, you know, describing the gravitational phenomenon in the universe. But like for what it's worth, it's not like you can't just throw out Newtonian physics off of that. You know what I mean? Like it's still useful in non-relativistic conditions, right? So he says, never believe a word without putting its truth to the test. So you got to do that. Discernment does not grow in laziness. As to say that if you want to be discerning, you can't be lazy with it. You know, you can't just say, oh, somebody gave me all the answers kind of thing. And this faculty of discernment is indispensable to the seeker. So he says, so basically the real thing is that sound skepticism is a necessary condition for discernment. But piecemeal criticism is an error. Yeah, this piecemeal criticism, like another example was this. Like today, I guess we were talking about it on the Discord, where there's this video of these young black men like beating up some Asian lady, right? And so then later on, there's another video that shows the Asian lady like, oh, I'm so traumatized, but she doesn't seem too damaged. And so some people are just saying, oh, well, she faked it because she's not damaged. But it's like, so I jokingly say that they're using the Shaggy Defense, right? The Shaggy Defense is that, you know, it wasn't me, right? Because, you know, like if they're on camera, like beating up this old lady, you know what I mean? So it's not like anybody could say that you didn't do it, right? But it's just like, nah, it wasn't me. So, yeah, like you know, criticizing the situation to say, oh well, the lady's not damaged, or oh well, you know, people always lie on African Americans or something, right? Is kind of like peace criticism. Like you could have sound skepticism and be like, well, you know, whatever. But just the idea that, you know, human beings would not ever attack another individual that isn't real. But I that's just like a little sidebar, because I think it was because Arthur Joe was saying you know, had me nearly defending Christianity, which I wouldn't do. Yeah, he said, gotcha. Shit, got him. Tanzan says, okay, I'm caught up now. Now I can comment. Tanzan, let us know if let us know what time you're coming on. EL says, piecemeal definition characterized by unsystematic partial measures taken over a period of time. Yeah, unsystematic partial. Yeah, exactly. It's like when you're just like, you know, it's kind of like what we do a lot, you know, where we just like, oh, you know, this, you know, you can't trust those white men. Oh, like, you know, like I was saying this, like when I was younger, you know, I got into the mindset of you can't trust white people. You can't trust white people. And then it's like, I'm literally crossing the street in front of them. Like they have cars and I'm walking in front of their cars where if I really didn't trust them, I would not like walk in front of their cars. You know what I mean? Or I wouldn't eat the food they're serving. So it's just like a big contradiction in like there's so many ways to look at it. But Tanzan says piecemeal in small amounts, and small steps are amounts. Yeah, I feel like it is. Tanzan says I'll be on 5 p.m. Eastern on the new channel. Whoop, whoop. Is it a new channel? Like, did you link it to us? Show us so we can subscribe. We should all go subscribe to Tanzan. Tanzan's a very brilliant mind, and you know, we should all appreciate that. Okay, let's go on. Self-reliance and development is merely an application of something we knew in 1954. Only Tanzanians are sufficiently interested in developing Tanzania in the interest of Tanzania. And only Tanzanians can say what those interests are. Socialism is an application to economic and social life of the doctrine of human equality, which we appealed to when we rejected the rights of any other nation to govern us. So like when we were talking about like Arusha Declaration, right? Like piecemeal criticism could also be like if you just looked at like one line, you know, like one line, and it wasn't even a critical line, and you were just like, yep, this whole document is trash, you know? Like it's different if you look at the whole document and you're like, okay, well, there's just too much that's like kind of like the criticism that he brought up, which is, you know, it's way too socialist, obviously. The qualifications are way too strict. You know, I can't have any freaking wealth. And it probably does favor outside groups, right? Like that's actually sound skepticism to the efficiency of the thing. If you just said, well, you know, you say that we're going to meet on Tuesdays and, you know, Tuesdays I'm not free, so this whole thing is stupid. Then it's like, shut up. Just shut up, you know? You know, it's that's the difference, you know? And actually, that's what happened to me. I'll tell you guys this. So I had this, like I said, one of my brothers is a coon, right? And so one thing that he, like, I could appreciate for, you know, engaging him was that he, like, I like, there was like BLM was a thing at the time, that we were like more communicating with each other. And he was like, hey, you know, a lot of times, like when the police are doing stuff to us, like we're kind of doing things that we shouldn't be doing, you know? And so sometimes I would look at some of these videos and I would be like, okay, he kind of got me. But then obviously that would make me also be able to show him the videos where black people are not doing anything. You know, like they have their hands up and the police shoot them. Or that there was this one guy, I remember there's this video of this one brother who was just there, had his hands up, was complying, and the officer just started kicking him. Like full ass kicking him with his hands up, not doing anything. And it's like it made me better appreciate how to think, because a lot of our people would just be like anything, that anytime. So you have like this one guy who's like he could be like shooting at cops, and then we're just like, why'd they shoot him? You know, it's like, and it's like, sure you can do that, but it's what I realized is that it's not going to win over the like the coons, whereas the coons are gonna have a defense and be like, why are you shooting at the cops, right? Like you or I might be like, whatever, right? But or like just overlook that, or not really, but just like understand why people are grieving the loss of a human being, whereas the coons are going to be like, well, you were shooting at the cops, you were, you did steal a car, you did, you do whatever, you did have a gun, even if you threw it away, but like as far as like, hey, look, I'm complying and this officer is just punching me and I'm not even fighting back, it's like those are the clear-cut examples. And so like piecemeal criticism is like, like not seeing the bigger picture in those situations too, where it's like, well, I mean, if you are shooting at some white people, they're probably going to shoot back at you. You know what I mean? Like it's very unlikely that they wouldn't shoot back at you. Just very unlikely. I mean, not like it's just like, yeah, I would expect if I were shooting at people that they might, if they had guns, they probably would shoot back at me. So anyway, that's a. I mean, of course, low key, I did communicate my coon brothers' ideas, but that's like a thing. Let's see. Tanzan says, still working on the kinks. I'm new to this. Okay, let's I'm gonna subscribe to Tanzan's channel, so you guys go ahead and do the same. I got the 4th subscription, apparently. Tanzan definitely working on the kinks. If I'll just now be in the 4th, but. It is what it is. Self-reliance is development in merely an application of something we knew in 1954. Yeah, I think I said this. The only Tanzanians are blah, 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 socialist, economic, rejected the right of any other nation to govern us. So these two things are but different sides of the single coin, human equality. And most clearly of all, the Arusha Declaration refers to men and to systems, not to members of particular racial or tribal groups. So remember, he says tribal groups, And so some people could criticize him off the tribal thing, and it's like, shut up, let him keep that. The person who claims to use it in support of attacks on any particular racial community is betraying both his ignorance and his rejection of the principles enunciated in it. The implication of self-reliance. What then is the meaning of self-reliance, and what are the implications of our future policies? First and foremost, it means that for our development, we have to depend upon ourselves and for our own people, our own resources. These resources are land and people. Certainly we have a few factories, we have a small diamond mine and so on, but it's important to realize that what measured in 1960 prices out of gross domestic product estimated at 4,000, so basically 4 billion shillings, and some 2 billion shillings, that is more than 57% of what was the direct result of agricultural activities. We have a few factories, diamond mines. So you're saying the diamond mines grossed over 4 billion shillings, which is more than 57% of the direct result of agricultural activities. Only 321 shillings was the combined result of the mining and manufacturing. That is to say that all the mining and manufacturing of Tanzania produced last year was less than 7% of the gross domestic product. Okay, he wrote that really confusedly. I think I thought he was saying something else. Hold on a second. What then is the meaning of self-reliance, and what are the implications for the future policies? First and foremost, it means that our development, we have to depend upon ourselves and our own resources. These resources are land and people. Certainly we have a few factories, we have a small diamond mine and so on, but it's important to realize that out of our gross domestic product of 4 billion shillings in 1966, some 2 billion shillings, so more than 50%, was the direct result of agricultural activity. So he's saying that agriculture brought in 2 billion. Well, the gross domestic product was 57% agriculture, whereas mining was only 7%. Okay, so he's basically just still going on the agriculture is the best thing, which is good and it's important, but it's just like, yeah, okay. The one thing we certainly do not have is money searching for investment opportunities. The per capita income in terms of 1966 prices was about shillings 525 last year. And so again, I just want to emphasize this. The people who were investing in Europe were individuals. And so what happens is that when you cut back on individual wealth, right? When you cut back on individual wealth, you're cutting back on investing. Because see, he keeps saying, hey, look, we're not getting money from abroad. We're not. Well, the thing is, nobody was abroad investing in European industries. So like realistically, the model was never to find money from abroad. And that's like one of the issues that we have as African people, is that we continually are saying find money from abroad, when realistically what we should be doing is just encouraging our people to have wealth, and then also to be parsimonious, you know. And so when they're parsimonious and we give them investment opportunities, we give them opportunities to produce wealth, then they would get wealth. So like for instance, you have like for instance, a lot of African Americans would be very entrepreneurial, right? Because they're encouraged to be entrepreneurial, you know. Not to say that, you know, African Americans, not to say they don't get money from outside, not to say they don't whatever, but it's just that realistically, it's that being entrepreneurial that can work out for the better for them, or at least on an individual basis. It's not going to be on a mass scale, and that's like one of the issues that we have to come face to face with. But it is. On an individual level, it would be beneficial. So the one thing we certainly do not have is money searching for investment opportunities. The per capita income in terms of 1966 prices was about this much shilling. That does not allow very much to be withdrawn from current consumption and invested in development. Indeed, we did very well last year to find 135 million shilling. That is about 14 shillings per person from internal resources for development. But to provide one job in a highly mechanized industry can cost 40,000 or more shillings. To build an oil refinery costs more than 110 million shillings. To build a modern steel mill would cost rather more than that. So he's just letting you know, look, realistically, an oil refinery costs 110 million shillings. And so it becomes who in their right mind would spend 110 million shillings, right, on an oil refinery if they can't profit from the oil refinery. You understand? Because here's what I would say is this. If I had 300 million shilling somehow, okay? No, let's say I have 300 million shillings somehow, right? And like if I have it like an honest way, which is a possibility, right? I mean, it's not really, but you know, it is what it is. Or if a group of people had 300 million shillings, you know, whatever. A group has 300 million shillings. You're saying, hey, we as African people need to refine our own oil. Makes sense. Okay. Now you're telling them to spend that $300 million, 300 million shilling, and then not make any money back. You get what I'm saying? So if that were the case, then what I would do with my 300 million shilling is I would just buy drugs. I'll buy video games. You know? Why am I buying a refinery? What could possibly possess me to buy a refinery if I'm just going to lose out? I'm just going to miss out on 110 million shillings worth of entertainment. You know what I mean? Especially like, you know, shoot, I'm in Tanzania, all them fine women walking around. You think, and women like men with money, and I got 110 million shillings. You think I'm not going to spend? Yeah, want some mod? You understand? All right. So EL says pooling our resources is important. Yeah, without a doubt. Development through agriculture, but yeah, I mean, like you gotta. But that's what I'm saying. You pool your resources to what end, though? You know, because like again, like I get it. Yeah, sure. If you want to, like it's really tough. It's like really tough to ask somebody to put like some money down when other people are not putting money down, and when other people are enjoying their money. You know, it's like really, really tough to say that that one person. It's like I said, like if my brothers are spending money on drugs and sex, and I'm not getting any drugs or sex, right? But then I'm like paying for the community needs. You know what I mean? And it's like, just because I'm not getting any money or sex, it's like, yeah, I don't know. Like, part of it is like, you know what? I'd rather just get money and sex. You have to give people a real incentive towards community development, and because otherwise it's just like, yeah, it's not that easy. Like, you'd have to be like one of those people who just happens to like just take some sort of pleasure out of like being used. You know what I mean? Like, just have to be some, because again, it's still your labor that you've already put in to get your earnings or something. It's still, you know, it's just, you'd have to be some sort of sucker, like, really. Not that suckers don't exist. It's just, I wouldn't count as that. I wouldn't count on that for a development model. Like, I wouldn't count on it, you know? So development through agriculture. On the other hand, it is possible to double the output of cotton on a particular acre by spending 130 shillings on fertilizer and insecticide. It is possible to double a farmer's acreage under crops by the provision of an ox plow at a cost of 250 shillings or less, and so on. In other words, whereas it is possible to find this sort of investment capital which can bring great increase in the agricultural output from our present resources, it is not possible for us to envisage establishing heavy industry or even very much in the way of light industries in the near future. So again, he's kind of being cheap, but like, I want you guys to pick up on what I'm saying here. He's saying, look, you could double your crops, right? And then wait a second. Hold on a second. Okay, he's saying you could quadruple your crops by spending 400 shillings on your acreage. Okay? You could quadruple your crops. Like, if you have if I have an acre of land and my brother has an acre of land, right? And we produce so much or so little on our, no, let's say we produce 100 shillings worth of profit, right? My brother produces 100 shillings worth of profit. I produce 100 shillings of profit, right? And my brother spends all 100 shillings on all his profit on, you know, sex and whatever, right? Which is okay, you know, sex and dating. And then I don't spend it on sex and dating. So I'm kind of like, oh my gosh, I wish I was having sex, but I'm not, because, you know, I'm a cheap ass, whatever, right? So after 4 years, I now get myself fertilizer and insecticide, right? And then I get an ox plow. And now, instead of making 100 shillings profit, I'm making 400 shillings profit a year, right? Same sort of acreage, right? You get what I'm saying? So now I'm wealthy in comparison to my brother. And essentially the idea behind this is that, well, that ain't right. And then even that, you might say, well, what if the government just comes along and spends the 400 shillings on my brother so that he can now, and so it's just like, for me, I'm like, I mean, I'm not going to complain, obviously. But a part of it is too, that if the government is going around and spending 400 shillings, then I'm not going to spend the freaking 400 shillings. It's like, I'll tell you guys this, student loan with Biden is like, hey, look, I'm going to pay $10,000 off your student loans. I owe about that much money, and I have about that much money, right? I don't plan on spending a dime on my freaking student loans if I know that the government's going to come around and pay for it. Because I would just look stupid. I could pay for it, but if the government's going to come around and pay for it, then I'm not going to pay a fucking dime to it. I mean, I will probably pay the late fees if it doesn't come to him doing the shit. But like, for me personally, it's like, yeah, if I figure that the government's going to do something, then I'm not going to do it. You get what I'm saying? Even if I have the money. So what could happen here is that if he's like, hey, you know what, we can quadruple your thing if we get 400 shillings to you, I'm gonna sit around and wait for these freaking 400 shillings. Because what happens is that when I do spend the 400 shillings, right? I'm gonna be like, fuck, I just spent 400 shillings because I'm a cheap ass. You know what I mean? I'm a cheap ass. I go out and drink and I'm cheap. I ain't gonna hold you guys. You know, women don't like me for that. You know, other brothers is ballers. I'm not like, you know, like shit. Gabby writes here. Greetings, BBP, and the chat. And then people tell him greetings. But yeah, I'm just telling you guys what his IS is. I'm not holding y'all. To be realistic, therefore, we must stop dreaming of developing Tanzania through the establishment of large modern industries. For such things, we have neither the money nor the skilled manpower required to make them efficient and economic. We would even be making a mistake if we think in terms of covering Tanzania with mechanized farms using tractors and combine harvesters. So you guys see what I'm saying? If you say to yourself, hey, look, he quadrupled, he gets to 400 shillings, right? And then the same farmer says, you know what, with these 400 million a year, I can now afford something for 1,000 shillings improvement. And then with the, you know, if I quadruple from there, I might pull in 1,600 a year. And then, you know what, I can afford something for 10,000 shillings improvement. So now I can have a mechanized farm for myself. I can buy more acreage. I can do all that kind of stuff. I can buy help. And then what happens is that Nyerere then gets in the way of this person buying help. Because he says you can't buy help. You understand? So now if I have an acre of farming, right, and then I can afford to get 5 acres of farming, right, but then I can't personally as an individual or as a family unit man 5 acres of farming. The rumor is, I mean, the settlement is, you get what I'm saying. So, you know, hopefully I can articulate this, because again, it doesn't matter if I think this, because some people probably came to Nyerere and said that, and he was like, yeah, I don't give a shit, we're doing the Tanu thing. And that's fine. Like, that's his prerogative. You know, what's your prerogative is not to worry about what the other man thinks. Like, the other man can think whatever he wants. What your prerogative is to build the political party that is aligned with your thoughts. That's your thought. That's your prerogative. You know? So anyways, says, once again, we have neither the money nor the skilled manpower. And again, the reason why they don't have the money is because, well, not the reason why, but one of the reasons behind it is going to be that you're not allowing individuals to get their own wealth. And you're calling any labor of one person to another exploitation. You know? So like if my brother, for instance, is okay with like for instance, if my brother was like, hey, you know what? Like if I went to my brother and said, hey, you got an acre of land, I can pay you 150. Because like if I can take out 400, if I can look, so like I said, my brother has an acre, I have an acre, right? Originally we're both earning 100 shillings profit per acre, right? I can go to my brother, and but here's the thing: when I have the factory and all that kind of when I have the like I said, when I have the hoe, I think it was, what did he say? Fertilizer. When I have the fertilizer and the insecticide, and I have the ox plow. When I have the ox, right, I can make 400 shilling, right? All things considered, right? If I can make 400 shilling on my land, right, that means that I could do one of 3 things. I can go to my brother and be like, hey, you know what? I can use my fertilizer and insecticide and my ox plow on your land, right? And I could pay you, 70 shillings. Or I could pay you 100 shillings, like what you were earning. Like I pay you less than you were earning before, but you don't have to work. I could pay you the same that you were, no, but you would just work for me. I could pay you 100 shillings and you would just work for me. Or I could pay you 150 shillings and you would just work for me. You get what I'm saying? And whatever he's okay with. And then like, again, like the difference is that, even though he's getting paid more in the 150 shilling setting than he would if he was working his land, I would get 400 from his land. Right? And so what happens then is that Nyerere would say that's exploitation. And a lot of people listening would say that's exploitation. But is it really exploitation to say, you know what, you wouldn't be earning as much without using my tools? You understand? So that's the complicated situation that, like me, I personally wouldn't consider it exploitation. But I could see how Like we are being conditioned to think that it is. That if like essentially what we are imagining is that I would have the ox plow and the fertilizer, and I would let him use it, and like my own brother, I'd let my brother use it, and he could then pull in 400 shillings for himself. And so the question becomes, well, why the hell did I buy him or let him use my ox plow? Like, what do I get from that? And it could be that, you could say, well, you let everybody eat more, and that's fine, sure. But it just becomes, why is that so important to me in this sense? Anyway, using tractors and combine harvesters. So once again, we have neither the money nor the skilled manpower, nor in this case a social organization which could make such investments possible and economic. This is not to say that there will be no new modern industries and no mechanized farms, but they will be the exception. See what I'm saying? They'll be an exception, not the rule, and they'll be entered upon to meet particular problems. They are not the answer to the basic development needs of Tanzania. So again, like it's a little complicated. Tanzania says, yes, Oni, we get it. You are cheap. Damn. Okay. If the choice between exploitation and starvation, the choice is clear. Well, he's not starving. He got his own land. It's just a question of how much. Why is Tanzania so mean to me? Yeah, I'm kind of cheap. I ain't gonna hold you guys. But look, like that's the thing I like about this Wealth of Nations thing is that he was like, yo, it's realistically speaking, the people who develop the economy are the cheap people. Forecast says, what's up? Forecast? Yeah, he's just like this. This is not my opinion. This is like the opinion of the guy who people consider the father of capitalism. He's like, yo, it's actually the cheap people who are the people who develop the wealth of the society, because a lot of people are just not cheap. You know what I mean? A lot of people are just not cheap. And like realistically, I also like if we're being honest, that's the thing that we don't like about a lot of these African politicians is the fact that they're just like splurging on this public wealth. Whereas if they were taking this public wealth, even if it was for themselves and developing industries, right, a lot of us wouldn't complain. I mean, it would still be kind of shitty, but we wouldn't complain because, like, well, not that we wouldn't complain, but you get what I'm saying. It's like if they use the public resources, like that's realistically what it is. They're using the public resources to be, the word is prodigal. So basically, like drugs, sex, cars, boats, all that shit, right? Whereas parsimonious is basically like, no, I'm using the wealth, or I'm using the public wealth to develop the infrastructure. And that's realistically speaking what you want our people to be doing, but we're not, and that's it. All right, so an appropriate agricultural method. So this is what the Arusha Declaration makes clear in both economic and social terms. Our future lies in the development of our agriculture and the development of our rural areas. But because we are seeking to grow from our own roots and to preserve that which is valuable in our traditional past, we have also to stop thinking in terms of massive agricultural mechanization and the proletarization of our rural population. We have instead to think in terms of development through the improvement of the tools we now use and through the growth of cooperative systems of production. Instead of aiming at large farms using tractors and other modern equipment and employing agricultural labor, we should be aiming at having ox plows all over the country. You see what I'm saying? All right. The djembe will have to be eliminated by the ox plow before the latter can be eliminated by the tractor. We cannot hope to eliminate the djembe by the tractor. Instead of thinking about providing each farmer with his own lorry, we should consider the usefulness of oxen driven. Like, what is he talking? Like, I kind of wanted to stop. Like, I just wanted to just read it, but it's just like fudge. Like that. I feel like he's like putting us backward. Now, shoot, Tanzan, you talking about me cheap? Nah, Nyerere is cheap. You know what I'm saying? like this brother could develop the economy if he just, but he's like getting in his way. But this brother is cheap. He's like, hey, hold on a second, we ain't gonna have no. So lorry is like a car. So he's like, no, we ain't gonna have no lorries. We ain't gonna have no trucks. Whoa. We gonna have ox carts. Like, fuck that. Like, yeah, this brother cheap. I'm sorry. Like you pay attention to this dude. He is cheap. Now that's like, this is my brother from another mother. You know what I mean? My brother from another mother. All right. We should consider the usefulness of oxen-drawn carts, which could be made within the country and which are appropriate both to our roads and to the loads which each farmer is likely to have. Instead of the aerial spraying of crops with insecticides, like look at him. He's like, instead of flying planes to do insecticide, we should use hand-operated pumps and so on. Like, my guy, like, yo. this dude, like, if this dude were a quote unquote capitalist, like, he would have, like, it would have been it, man. Tanzania would have been like Wakanda, as people say, you know. People always say that shit, like, oh, this would have been Wakanda, but like this dude had the cheapness on point. I'm telling you. All right, so in other words, we have to think in terms of what is available or can be made available. Like, he's cutting costs like a mofo. Like, damn, I'm at, like, he's not. This is my elder. All right. This is my elder right here. All right. Or can be made available at comparatively small cost, and which can be operated by the people. By moving into the future, I didn't show you guys, but by moving to the future along with this path, we can avoid massive social disruption and human suffering. I didn't show you guys this, but back in high school, these white people awarded me with the W.B. Du Bois biography. You know, they were like, hey, this is a smart black guy. Let's give him a biography on this race trader and all that shit. So, like, I feel like that's what happened to Nyerere. Like, he's this brilliant, cheap dude. Like if you know game, if you peep game, this is a man who would have developed the economy. Like, he would have been like a good capitalist, you know, in the sense of and that, but I shouldn't say capitalist, because capitalist has a bad rap to it. But basically, as far as, you know, what Author Jor tweeted today was something along the lines of people who, like, he was like, high IQ people don't take big risk, and that's why they're not as successful as so on and so forth. And like, I don't buy that stuff. But what I would say is that, you know, from the literature, from the, you know, whatever, like, I get the whole, if you're cheap, you could have savings, because I seen that in my own life. You know what I mean? I still have savings, you know, like, so, like, a lot of my savings for like a long time was just off of what I earned, like the little amount of money I earned in grad school, you know, like, and I'm talking about like that thing like stretched for years for me, you know, and I was like I said, it was like $20,000 a year, and I was like living off that from like 1 year, you know. You know what I mean? Like, it was weird. Anyway, well, like, you know, you could be cheap. All right, I was cheap, right? But anyway, so what I'm saying is that I completely understand. I understand that, like, successful people, realistically speaking, will cut costs in an efficient and intelligent way. You know what I mean? That's like this, like I think somebody probably peeped game and we're like, yo, this guy is somebody to worry about. He's not being bought. They couldn't buy Nyerere. Like, Nyerere had such a good character. I'm telling you this. No, hold on. Let me explain to you guys this. Right? There is a paper. I almost feel like bringing it up. There is a paper. Like, this is such a good man. Like, I don't even like don't buy into my criticism is what I'm going to tell you guys. Do not buy into my criticism. This is one of the better people on the planet. Okay? Yeah. So let me show you guys this. Hold on a second. So there's this PDF. We're just gonna skip over. I know. You're like, dude, I want to know about Nyerere. Look, go read the book. It's like available. Let me see. Is this the link? Yeah. So this is a paper. It's like Nkrumah and Julius Nyerere, right? It's like comparing the two, and it goes in, and the question of the day is, why did they kick out Nkrumah, but they didn't kick out Nyerere, right? And so, like, that's the question of the day. And so there's like a real internal communication. Let me see if I can find it. There's a real internal communication by the CIA, FBI as to why they didn't kick out Nkrumah. Let me see if I could find on this thing. Let me see. CIA maybe? Let's see. No, it's going to show me socialist. Freaking A. All right, let me see if I can do space or something. It's like a real question. Why didn't they kick out? Okay, it's not going to show me. All right. Let me see if maybe I can look up agent. Maybe that might help a little more, because I don't know where this thing on the page is. All right, it's annoying. All right, it's not even annoying. All right, you hate when the computer just does stupid shit. Bomba clot. All right, I'll get back to that. Okay, I'll get back to that. But like, the long story short, they were like, he was just like the CIA. Somebody approached the CIA and said, "Hey, can you help me overthrow Nyerere?" And the CIA was like, "No, that guy is too damn good. Like, nobody's gonna want to support you." When it comes, like, nobody's going to want to support somebody who overthrows Nyerere. Now, when it comes to overthrowing Nkrumah, it's like, yo, that guy has money. You know, he has foreign money. He has this. He's you know, he's a dog, more or less. But when it came to Nyerere, it was like, yeah, no, like, he's just too honest. He's too good, and all that stuff. And that's not, like, my opinion. These are, like, people who wanted to overthrow him. And they were like, yeah, we can't because he's just too... All right, let me see if I could... Maybe this might be it. Give me 2 seconds, fam. Because I really think this is, like, valuable. So it's like, look, Nkrumah's overthrow and Nyerere's fate, right? And so you would skip ahead. Julius Nyerere, on the other hand, retained higher probability among Tanzanians up to his resignation in the presidency in 1985 as he transitioned, so on and so forth. Even Nyerere's critics, of which he had his share, mostly were those who see Mwalimu as an individual who meant well for Tanzania, but whose ideals, goals, and targets could not have been met because of the inadequate resources, the lack of political will, ill-judged timing, or a failure to accept the myriad of external factors. Okay, that's not even it. I feel like this might not even... Oh, okay. Governmental corruption and ties to the executive. So they're talking about Nkrumah and Nkrumah's overthrow. And they say, Nyerere, on the other hand, was not burdened with the blame for corruption for his country. His image as a morally impeachable and frugal man made it difficult for his opponents to tie mismanagement in Tanu to Nyerere himself. Nyerere conveyed a sense of dignity and humility that manifested itself in many arenas. You see that? Frugal. It's not me making it up. Like, you peep game. I'm not even, like, I didn't even read this paper in a long time, but, like, even, like, and I didn't read it for this commentary, but even they're like, yo, this dude's a cheap ass, you know? He declined, so I'm just surprised Tanzan's gonna call me that. He declined to take any honorific titles during his time in office, instead preferring to go by Mwalimu, which is Swahili for a teacher. Indeed, even refused to allow members of parliament to address by honorific. He was impressed at Mao's government's frugality. So Mao, again, was another frugal person. Purchased $900. They're going to say something about, let me see. Oh yeah, CIA involvement. There you go. Sorry. You know, it's like when you see a document for a long time, it's like whatever. All right. Nyerere, on the other hand, so they're talking about why they overthrew Nkrumah here. So if anybody wants this link, I'll link it soon. Nyerere says, on the other hand, managed to steer clear of the third world's most feared agency. This is interesting, as both Nyerere and Nkrumah were left-leaning, charismatic leaders with an aversion to Western institutions. However, research by Godfrey Makikagele, and I shouldn't even try that because Tanzania's going to be on my ass, but indicates why the CIA did not actively attempt to overthrow Tanzania's government. His research pointed out that Nyerere's immense popularity, high international stature, and incorruptible nature made it highly unlikely that his ouster would be accepted either domestically or abroad. When Oscar, so this somebody actually asked, like I said, you have your freaking enemies within. You have them. It's not me making it up. When Oscar Kambona of Tanzania requested in the Central Intelligence Agency, so he went to the CIA of America, and he said help to overthrow his former friend. He was plainly told that Nyerere was impregnable because he was incorruptible and had no loot stashed in foreign vaults. Right? That's unlike Nkrumah. So this is what the white boy will tell you. He's like, look, there are some people who are parsimonious, some people are prodigal. Some people, like, even, I'm not saying that, like, I was telling you guys before, I was like, nah, fuck that. I'm not gonna, I'm like, yeah, I would probably have some wealth stashed up in case politics doesn't work. Because, like, if I don't, like, my kids can, like, be starved or some shit. You know what I mean? This guy didn't even have that. The white people were like, the fuck? Because, like, I'm not saying that I'm corruptible. I'm not saying any of that shit. I'm just saying that even reasonable, even cheap individuals are like, you know what? You should have a plan B, too. Right? Nyerere didn't even have that. And it's like, although Nyerere's ideology was not clearly in line with U.S. policy, government officials had determined that a coup would never work in Tanzania due to the Mwalimu's popularity and moral incorruptibility. I'm telling you, this is like the same way how I respect Malcolm X too. I respect Malcolm X because, you know, CIA came to him. It's like, you want some money? It's like, you can't buy me. Now, I don't know to what extent you couldn't buy Malcolm X, but, you know, he at least, there's evidence that he was like, nah, you ain't buying me. Right? This guy Nyerere is ruling an African nation. Just think about that for a moment. Think of all the people you know who rule African nations. This guy is ruling an African nation. This other guy Nkrumah, they kick his ass out. I could read this. With the release of the declassified documents over years, it is now clear that the American Central Agency was at best complicit and tacitly supportive of Kwame Nkrumah's overthrow, and perhaps more heavily involved. In the year leading up to the coup, U.S. Ambassador to Ghana, William Maloney, so look at that, the ambassador, and the CIA agents of the country openly discussed and planned for an overthrow of Nkrumah. Paul Lee, in his document, states that Mahoney was satisfied that popular opinion was running strongly against Nkrumah and the economy of the country in a precarious state. CIA kept in touch and lent support to coup plotters. In addition, the U.S. declined to offer Nkrumah the financial aid necessary to keep his regime running, all but ensuring his downfall. After Nkrumah's overthrow, a memo by a memo by Lyndon Johnson said his coup was a fortuitous windfall. So I guess I didn't go into the why, but I guess the document probably does. So if you guys want it, I can share it with you in the chat. But my point is that, yeah, like don't let my criticism of this guy on an ideological basis confuse you to the value of this man. Okay, do not let that be the thing, because like you'd rarely find a better individual, you know. And I'm not even like and I mean, like, I would wish to be as good an individual is what I would say. Here's the document for those of you who might be interesting. Forecast says so he says, what's up? Yeah, Forecast says, what's up to Tanzan? How you doing today? Tanzan says, Oni, I'm not being mean. You said it yourself. You are cheap. Yeah, I mean, look, cheap is good. Like, cheap is what saved Nyerere's life. You know what I'm saying? If you one of them high pricey people, you know, watch out. Tanzan says, I'm doing well, watching the elections in Kenya, hoping for peace, getting ready for my program later. And then I see EL Koku's asking what's up. Forecast asking what's up to Koku and EL. Tanzan says, yeah, ox carts is another level of cheapness. Yeah, he said, get rid of all luxuries. Do you really need the second pair of shoes? It's true. I remember this one sister. I tell you, I was dating this one sister. She had her furniture on layaway. She was bragging about how her son had a bunch of shoes that were worth like $1,000 that he left at his father's house or some shit. This lady was one paycheck from being homeless, and she ended up homeless. I'm telling you. EL, I'm good, thanks. EL, same here, I'm good. Tanzan says Nyerere was incorruptible. He lived what he spoke. Exactly. EL says, wow, impressive that this evil alphabet organization would say that about Nyerere. I mean, like, when your enemies, like, y'all see, I'm going to show y'all my book reviews. Oh, no, I think I showed y'all the one book review where the white boy is like, it's not propaganda for us. It's like, yeah, boy, you already know. Tanzan's trying to prove a point. She's like, you see those traitorous goons among our people? Get rid of them. Yeah, but the thing is that you can't. It's like I think what we were talking about, the Frankenstein and the scientist and the monster. Like the guy was the monster, but CIA is the Frankenstein. You know what I mean? EL says, I absolutely love Malcolm X, but like, you know, how you get rid of that? Like I said, like, that's why I want to do this political. Like, I want people to believe in at least the leaders, like, you know, at least frugality and that kind of stuff, among other things. But like, it's not me saying Nyerere is frugal. I'm saying that game recognized game, and a man's looking really familiar. You know what I'm saying? Talking about ox carts. Okay, boss. You know, we're not gonna have no massive industry right now. You know, like, damn, dude, we're gonna have the kids working in the farms. Like, dude, my dude, like, he's like beyond me. Like, I would never, like, I don't put kids to work like that. You know what I mean? Like, I put kids to work for learning, not like you're gonna starve. You know, like this, he's a legend. You know. All right, so small industries. At the same time, we can develop small industries. Oh, hold on. You guys can see my screen? Make sure. Okay. Make sure you guys can see my screen. Let me see. Forecast says, Tanzan, I understand. I'm just saying they're not worse. So he says, small industries. At the same time, we can develop small industries and service stations in the rural areas where the people live, and thus help to diversify the rural economy. By this method, we can achieve a widespread increase in the general level of people's incomes. Instead of concentrating any economic improvement in the hands of a few people, such capital as we have will make the wildest possible impact by being invested in fertilizers and credit for... Sorry, I'm like reading in a totally different tone. I just got a little distracted. Yeah, like in regard to what Forecast is saying, I mean, yeah, I think that, like I agree. You know what I mean? Like, I think that, but the thing I wanted to add was that these white boys are going to try to corrupt your people all the time. You know, like, that's the thing. They're going to try. You know, as long as these white people exist and as long as you have resources they want, they're going to try to get it by any means necessary. Yeah, I don't want to use Malcolm X's quote, but you get what I'm saying. So like, it is like it's a tough conversation. Like, how do you make sure your people are not corrupted or corruptible? But like, these white boys are gonna look for weaknesses, like all the time, and that's what you're supposed to do with your enemies. You're supposed to look for weaknesses. That's like half of warfare is looking for weaknesses and acting on them. It's just looking for weaknesses and acting on them. They know that you have mostly cavalry. They're gonna have mostly spears. You know what I mean? And if not spears, rifles. Like if they know that you mostly have horses, they're gonna do that. At the same time, we can develop small industries and service stations in the rural areas where the people live, and thus help to diversify the rural economy. So small industries. So he's like, yeah, we're going to have small industries. By this method, we can achieve a widespread increase in the general level of people's incomes instead of concentrating any economic development in the hands of a few people. Such capital as we have will make the widest possible impact by being invested in fertilizers and credit for better breeding stock and improving instruments of production and other similar things. These, although small in themselves, can bring a great proportionate increase in the farmer's income. Exactly. This does not mean that there will be no new investments in towns or that there will be no new factories. When you have large numbers of people living together, certainly public services are essential for public health and security reasons. It would be absurd to pretend that we can forget the towns, which are in any case often a service center for the surrounding rural areas. Exactly. That's what towns are. Factory sites. Factories which serve the whole country also have to be sited in places where are convenient for transport and communication. For example, if we had put the Friendship textile mill in a rural area, we would have had to invest in special road building, etc., for it to be of any use. In any case, the number of its workers would soon mean that a new town had grown up in that place. But even when we are building factories which serve the whole nation, we have to consider, since he does make a textile mill, right? Even when we are building factories which serve the whole nation, we have to consider whether it is necessary for us to use the most modern machinery which exists. So just again, the cheap thing exists in the world. We have to consider whether some older equipment which demands more labor, but labor which is less highly skilled, is not better suited to our needs, as well as being more within our capacity to build and use. Like again, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. It's probably more cheap than I would be. But it's beautiful. I mean, again, like I wouldn't necessarily do the latest thing either, like for instance, I got this gaming computer, right? It's not the $10,000 gaming computer. It's not the $500 gaming computer either, though. You know what I'm saying? It's like that. You know what I mean? Or like how I was telling you guys that I think it was yesterday. I was telling you guys my father had like a drone, and then Jose was like, yeah, I got a drone too, but it's secondhand. You know what I mean? Now, my father had an expensive drone to me, but there are more expensive drones. You know what I mean? Realistically speaking, what he's saying is like, it seems like he's talking about going to cheap drone, but like, I don't blame him, It's like right now, if y'all were to, like, sometimes when I'm talking on the podcast, y'all might see me go for my phone and look like a whole brick. Like, it's not an iPhone, it's an Android. It's a cheap ass Android. Like, we're talking like $60 Android. Most black folk be buying $600 phones. You know what I mean? $600 phones, $800 phones, $50 plans, $80 plans. My plan is $20. You understand? That's what my plan is. I'm just letting y'all know. Like shit, boy. All right. I'm not necessarily like sometimes I would do a $10, but like I'm not the cheapest, but but what it does is it allows me to have money for other things though. There are, however, two respects in which our call for self-reliance has been widely misunderstood or deliberately misinterpreted. The doctrine of self-reliance does not imply isolationism, either politically or economically. It means that we shall depend on ourselves, not on others. But that is not the same thing as saying we shall not trade with other people or cooperate with them when it is to a mutual benefit. Obviously, we shall do so. We shall have to continue to sell enough of our goods abroad to pay for the things we will have to acquire. Up to now, Tanzania has always done this. Indeed, we have had a surplus of our balance of payments for many years. This brother is good, man. But the things we sell are the products of our agriculture, and this is likely to continue to be the case despite the problem of commodities prices in the world. That things we import will... And so that actually screwed up Tanzania too, by the way. So what happens is that when you're just selling these agricultural products and other people are setting the prices, in a sense, or other people can force the prices or whatever, right? You get screwed over. And so we all know about that kind of stuff. And I think he while he was in government, he like complained about how, the thing that used to sell for this amount of money. Like white people could pretty much manipulate the cost of the markets because they're the ones buying it. And so like realistically, one thing that I'm like, again, like we talk about international political parties, like we're going to have to push for Africans to trade with Africans more so. So that's why, like, if we had a political party in Tanzania, we had a political party, the same political party in Kenya, the same political party in Uganda, the same political party in Cameroon, the same political party in Ghana. You get what I'm saying? You have that. Suddenly, when you're like, hey, I will sell you for, I'll sell you for corn or whatever, and all that kind of stuff, right? You do that, and some people accumulate that wealth. They can then, we'll sell you these cell phones. It's we can do this. Like, we can do this. I'm telling you guys, we can do this. Let me see what the comments are. Tanzan, I understand. She said, thank you, Oni. We'll be Frankenstein 78 by the time we finally got to Doctor making the monsters. Exactly. Like we you don't, like, CIA, like the CIA is doing it, EL says, I'm perplexed because Malcolm X had very lofty praise of Lumumba's virtue, but we know what they did to Lumumba. All right, I'm not really sure about what that means, but yeah. Like, what do you mean? Like, what did they? You mean like how they killed? Wait, what's so surprising about that? Of course they're gonna do and it was his friends too. They're gonna, like, they wanted to do something to Nyerere. The issue was, will the people go along with, the collapse of the TANU, or the collapse of Nkrumah, Nyerere? Like, would they go along with that? For Nkrumah, that was easy. The guy was pocketing a lot of the money, putting it in other bank accounts. The guy wasn't even, like, married to a black woman. Like, you know what I mean? Like it, he's sabotaging shit. He's like, some people were, like, murdered under his watch. Like, other political opposition was murdered under, like, it's a lot of shit going on. So, like, it's not too hard for people to be like, yeah, you know what? It might be better under somebody else's leadership. But, like, when a good, honest man is doing his best, and it's just like a hard situation, but he's still doing well, and, like, there's improvement everywhere, people are not going to rally behind the person who kills him. You know what I mean? With regard to Lumumba and them, like, it was, like, again, you could get enough people to be like, yeah, sure, let's go with the other guy. I can't remember his name. Mobutu. Let's go with Mobutu. But like with Nyerere, it was like, it's just like not even remotely, like it's like he's just too good a freaking man. It's like there's good, and then there's, because, like, I'll say this, like, some white people would shoot another black person before they shoot me. Like, obviously some white people would just shoot me, right? But, like, some white people would even, like, be like, you know what, that's actually that's a nice or a good black man. You know what I mean? Like, it's obviously not, like, universal, but I'm just saying that sometimes even other people will pause. You know what I mean? Not like no brag. I'm just saying that, like, sometimes, like, that's just, like, the reality. Like, in fact, I remember actually I met this one gangbanger, and it's like his gang leader in Bed-Stuy. Dude was a nice intellectual, like a really decent intellectual. It was refreshing, but, like, he was like a different breed from like the other thugs. You know what I mean? In a sense. So it's just like sometimes, like, character is, like, goes a long way. Not to say Lumumba didn't have a good character. It's just that, like, I couldn't tell you. I couldn't really say. So maybe that's what you're perplexed about. Maybe I should be perplexed about it too. Tanza says, yes, but if you act on your weaknesses first, the other sides will not be able to use them against you. You don't want to react to something you have control of. Then you can concentrate on the real battle instead of internal distractions. Yep. Bitter Medicine says, might as well drop the Cash App now. But what am I dropping it for? You dropping it, like, taking it out, or putting it further? All right, so the forecast says, Tanzan, I get it, but you're different because I know you serious and you want to be ready for the real battle. Tanzan said, the forecast is giving the compliment. Tanzan said, I like what Cat Williams taught his son about buying things. Better to have more of a good thing than only one of the best. Okay, Cat Williams, I don't remember him saying that, but EL's like, yes, exactly, we have to set the price. It's hard to set the price when you realistically the market sets the price. So what happens is this: if you're 10 people selling the same thing to one person, then they can, like, then they don't have to pay you, like, you know what I'm saying? But, like, if you're one person selling to 10 people, then they do have to pay you more. You know what I'm saying? So what happens is that it would be better if we were selling among ourselves than if we were selling to Europe. Like, if we were all, like, well, basically we're all selling to Europe, right? And so then Europe can now say, well, I can get this cheaper in the Gambia. You know what I mean? Whereas if only one of us were selling to Europe, then they couldn't get it cheaper in the Gambia. You know what I mean? They would get the price that you set. So that's realistically what it comes to. EL says, yes, exactly. We set the price. Tenant says, thanks, Forecast. We will continue this discussion. Let's pay attention now. Forecast says, but we also have to hope that another batch of traders will be ready by the time we finish with the first batch. Yeah. Tenant says, yeah, you're right. I'm paying attention. EL says, here is what Malcolm X said about Lumumba. Lumumba is the greatest black man who ever walked the African continent. He didn't fear anybody. He had those people so scared that they had to kill him. They couldn't buy him. They couldn't frighten him. They couldn't reach him. Yeah. I mean, like, I don't really, like, yeah, I don't, like, again, I don't know. I feel like I probably should read some Lumumba. But, like, people would say Cabral was really good. Sankara was really good. Obviously, Lumumba was really good. And Nyerere was really good. Like Africa had some really amazing leaders, you know? Maurice Bishop in Grenada and the Caribbeans, he was really good, you know? So like realistically speaking, there were so many great black men, and like that's one of the reasons why I'm not really like fond of this like American scene so much, because like we're so centered on America and we're so distracted from the greatness in Africa, you know? So it's like I don't know, I wouldn't say Lumumba was the greatest, I don't know, like he could have been, but like the issue is that like me growing up in the conscious quote unquote community, you know, I had Kaba and Smalls, the same guys that we heard it was on Sunday, right? And they would be like, Wade Noble said, and Dr. Clark said, and so on and so forth. And it's like you never, like you could be there, you could be listening to them, and you feel really well informed, but you don't know what Cabral said, and you don't know what Nyerere said. Like it, I'll be honest with you guys, until I guess it was like 2019 when I first heard about Nyerere. You know what I mean? Or like first went to look into Nyerere. So like when I was writing this the book of power, that's when I first came across Nyerere. And that's like partly why I wanted to even write the book. But it's like, why am I like in my 30s or my late 20s or whatever? I don't know. But why am I that old and just now learning about one of Africa's, like one of the third, possibly the third best African on the freaking planet in the 19th century. The 20th century. Why am I only learning about this great ass leader then? You know, and I'm like deeply involved in the conscious movement, deeply informed of the conscious movement. How am I so deeply, you know, like academic and scholarly, and I'm only learning about this great leader like in my 30s? You know, that's embarrassing for you know, me, and I'm like in America. You know what I mean? So obviously somebody like Tanzan would know about this guy, and all that kind of stuff. But it's just like honestly, I'm like low key embarrassed to even say it. But that's the thing. It's like we don't. You know, one of the best speakers. So like I said, a part of my my book was to highlight the good speakers of our past. And so when I was doing, like, I did 3 women and 3 men, right? And one of these women, Affiong, so she's pretty famous in England. She's active right now. She's active right now in the UK. She's from Ghana. She's, like, if you hear anybody speaking, of all the speakers that I came across, like, of all the living speakers that I came across, she is the best. Okay, the best. In terms of content, right? Nobody knows about her, and she's active right now. It's just like embarrassing for us as a people, because we're like so American centered to the point where, you know, if you say, hey, who are the best black minds, you know, you're like, oh, it's Amos Wilson, it's Dr. Chancellor Williams, you know, it's Chancellor Williams, it's Dr. Clark, it's Dr. Ben, it's so on and so forth, and you just name a bunch of Americans, and like everybody around the world saying the same thing. You know, like I was one time on Twitter, this guy, this South African guy, he's South African, and he's like, oh man, my life changed when I started listening to this conscious brother, and he's talking about Dr. Kaba. Like, you guys don't even know. Like, I literally did a presentation on Dr. Kaba 2 days ago. And this is the guy that's being influential in South Africa, the land of Steve Biko. So it's just like, you know, I don't know about this whole Lumumba is the greatest black man. I don't know. Obviously, he's not the greatest black man to ever walk on the African continent. That's ridiculous. But, you know, because we had, like, that's just ridiculous. Me personally, if you were to ask me the best African on the African continent, it would be Taharka. Probably followed by Nzinga. I'm not 100% sure, but it's definitely Taharka. But, like, yeah, and I don't think Lumumba compares to Nzinga or Taharka. But as far as, you know, was he the best of the 20th century? I don't even know. And that's embarrassing for me to say. You know? Yeah, Tanzan's like, not Kaba, not an essay. I'm telling you, it was, like, it just pisses me off. Because, like, people be like, yo, maybe you don't like African Americans. It's like, no, it's not that I don't like African Americans. Because I love African Americans. My issue is that why in the world is the whole conscious community focused on, like, a population that's not necessarily running political parties or running political, you know, like it doesn't make any sense. Like, if we're really trying to transform and so on and so forth, we don't have to have, and Kaba's like talking nonsense. Like, it's okay if you're in America and you're like, hey, you know what, Amos Wilson, Chancellor Williams, you know, blah, blah, blah. It's okay, because, like, that's where you are. But if you're in South Africa and you're like, hey guys, you gotta have this, you gotta have that, and it's like, okay, you know, like, Chancellor Williams, I like, you know, Tanzan brings up Chancellor Williams. I like Chancellor Williams. I'm not gonna hold you guys. Like, that's my guy. But that's about it. You know what I mean? Like, that's about it. You know, if I were to do like a top collection, sure, he could be there. But then you gotta also like Chinwezu. I never read. First time I read Chinwezu was with you guys, and that was like 2 weeks ago, right? Anyway, sorry, I'm just ranting. But anyway, so despite the problems of commodity prices in the world, so the thing we import will increasingly have to be the things which we are essential for our development and which we cannot produce ourselves. Up to now, we have been importing many things with a little effort would enable us to provide for ourselves, such as food, as well as luxury items which simply arouse desire among our people, which can never be satisfied for more than a tiny minority. Self-reliance, in other words, is unlikely to reduce our participation in international trade, but it should, over time, change its character to some extent. We should be exporting commodities after at least some preliminary processing, and we should be importing the things which we cannot produce and which are necessary for the development and the welfare of our whole people. So let me just see, because I've been talking way too long, so I'll just try to read through. Sorry about that, guys. Tanzania wants capital assistance. So the other thing which is necessary to understand about self-reliance is that Tanzania has not said it does not want international assistance in its development. So again, I thought this was a problem. He shouldn't have done this, but it is what it is, right? We shall continue to seek capital from abroad for particular projects or on a contribution to general development. It is clear, for example, that if we are to achieve our ambition to getting a railway which links Tanzania and Zambia, we shall have to obtain most of the capital and the technical skills from overseas. So again, this is obviously not something I would approve of. But, you know, it is what it is. I think he mentions it later, but it is what it is. Overseas capital will also be welcome for any project where it can make our own efforts more effective, where it acts as a catalyst for Tanzanian activity. It is for this reason that the government has made it clear that we shall welcome outside participation, whether private or government, in the establishment of many different kinds of factories, especially those who produce consumption of goods or process our crops and raw materials. And I mean, it's not that bad. Again, when you're in the position of power, you would do that. You know, you have to say to yourself, how do I get this road? How do I, you know, what's his name? Bit of Medicine, Koku has a I don't know why I say what's has this podcast where he's interviewing this guy named RJ Mahdi, right? And Koku goes up to him like, what do you think about the Chinese drilling offshores? No, what do you think about the Chinese, you know, operating in Africa? And RJ Mahdi's like, look, you know, if Senegal has an oil reserve in the ocean, the deep ocean, right? They don't have any drilling technology. Okay? Who else is going to drill that oil for the Senegalese? How are they going to profit from the oil unless somebody comes in with the heavy machinery that they don't have? You know what I mean? And so just like on realistic terms. Now you could be like, well, F it. don't make them do anything. But the reality is that you will not profit from that oil at all, because you cannot dig deep into the ocean. Like, you just can't. You know what I mean? Like you can't swim to the bottom of the ocean and pick up buckets of oil. You know what I mean? Like, it's just oil off the side of your coast. So either you and then the thing is that you can't even afford the machinery. You can't build the machinery. So I mean, you could build the machinery, but can you afford it? So it's a complicated question. And again, when you're in the leadership seat, you're probably going to say, you know what, like, you have to find a way to incorporate your people. So what other people do is that they say, look, you can work in our land if you hire at least some of our own people as your employees. You know what I mean? And you put them inside of these quarter positions that they can oversee and learn some shit, whatever. And then, if they don't accept those terms, then you say, well, fuck you. You know what I mean? Like, kind of like what EL was saying about these foreigners come in and they don't teach us anything. Well, yeah. Well, then you just say, you know what? There's no real benefit. Sure, it's going to be money, but money's not everything, because we want to be independent. But if you can say, look, sure, but then you're going to have this person as this side, this person at every meeting, this person done, and so forth. And then, we want to know how to do this ourselves. Then it would make, that's when you could, so on and so forth. But again, that's negotiation, because you could say, look, we'll take less money for apprenticeship. Anyway, so capital assistance for education of all kinds is another of the many fields in which outside assistance can be valuable, provided it is linked to our capacity to meet the recurrent costs. The important thing, however, is that we in Tanzania should not adopt an attitude that nothing can be done until someone else agrees to give us money. There are many things we can do by ourselves, and we must plan to do them. There are other things which can become easier if we get assistance, but these we should reckon on doing the hard way, by ourselves only being thankful if assistance is forthcoming. Skilled people are also needed, but it is not only capital which we must welcome from outside, it is also men. Few things make me more angry than a refusal to accept and to work with people from other countries whose participation can make all the difference between our plan succeeding or failing. So again, you see that he's like, look, few things make him more angry than a refusal to work with the foreigners. Okay? You know what? It's whatever. Because, my thing is, and I mean, look, we're in the West. We already work with foreigners. You know what I mean? It's not like we're just like, hey, fuck you foreigners. What are you doing? We might not want to work with foreigners in Africa. We might be like, hey, foreigners have bad intents. But the reality is this, that we're, working with foreigners in the West. You know what I mean? So I can't be like, I wouldn't trust no foreign doctor. Like, the first guy who gave me a STI exam was this white man. You know what I mean? I was with some, So, he tested my blood for whether or not obviously I didn't have an STI, but the point is that, the first, I was kind of skeptical at first because I'm like, fuck, this white boy could just inject me with anything. But, at the end of the day, I just went to this white boy to inject me, pull out my blood, and, don't know if the needle's clean or anything, whatever, right? But I did that. And so if I go to Africa and I'm like, I don't trust no white boy in Africa with no needle, it's like, yeah, but you trusted a white boy. Everybody's trusting a white boy to freaking take their blood, Obviously, there are white people who do inject you with diseases, and probably, and, most people, like me personally, I realize that white people of ill intent probably act, probably go to black nations and black areas, you can't trust the rest, how do you say the food in the hood, might be more contaminated, you know what I mean? But it is what it is, you know what I mean? At the end of the day, it's not like you're not trusting these white folk anyway. So anyway, it is not being self-reliant to refuse to carry out the directions of a foreign engineer or a foreign doctor or a foreign manager. It is just being stupid. It is absolutely vital that Tanzanians should determine policy, but if the implementation of a particular policy requires someone with good educational qualifications or long experience, it is not very sensible to allow that policy to fail through pride. And again, this is a risky thing. It's risky. This is what screwed up Marcus Garvey too. You know what I mean? When he had those ships, them white sailors sabotaged it. It's really, really tough. And that's the situation we find ourselves in as Africans. So, me personally, I probably wouldn't say it's stupid. Like I said, it's kind of back to blind credulity and piecemeal criticism, and then what it was sound skepticism, I think it's sound to be skeptical of the people who fucking colonized you. Sorry, I don't mean to curse. I apologize. I should not curse at our ancestors. I'm sorry. All right, but anyway, but see that y'all see how I apologize to our ancestors who aren't even, All right, all right. So let's say we must look at this question of employing expatriates scientifically and without prejudice. We must assess the interest of our development as a whole, not the interest of a particular person who feels that he would like the high post concerned, but is neither ready for it nor prepared to go on to learn from someone else. No false pride in this matter. So let us take note of the fact that the developed countries have no false prides in this matter. Western Europe and North America recruit trained people from countries like India and Pakistan, and West European countries complain bitterly about what they call the brain drain caused by the richer United States offering high incomes to educated and skilled people. So that's us. Like we're literally saying Africa's going through a brain drain. And he's like, even European countries are talking about that, right? It's been alleged that the United States has saved itself billions of dollars by attracting workers on whose education is not spent 1 cent. Yet while wealthy and developed countries adapt this kind of attitude, we in Tanzania appear to rejoice when we lose a trained person to Europe or North America. So he's like, other countries complain about the brain drain, but we kind of rejoice. We rejoice on the grounds that it provides us with an opportunity for Africanization or for self-reliance. Anyone would think that we have a problem of unemployed experts. It is time that we outgrew this childishness, and we must do so quickly if we intend to tackle this problem of modern development really quickly, seriously. So socialism. What then of socialism? The other aspect of the Arusha Declaration. First, it's important to be clear that nationalization of existing industries and commercial undertakings is only a very small part of the socialism which we have adopted. The important thing for us is to the extent to which we succeed in preventing the exploitation of one man by another and in spreading the concept of working together cooperatively for the common good instead of competitively for individual private gain. And the truth is that our economy is now so underdeveloped that it is in growth that we shall succeed or fail in these things. The nationalization of the banks, of insurance, and of the few industries affected was important, but much more important is whether we succeed in expanding our economy without expanding the opportunities and the incentives for human exploitation. Once again, this really means that socialism has to spread in the rural areas where our people live. In this, we have an advantage. I'm so freaking... Oh my gosh. I'm sorry, fam. I just like sometimes you think like, oh man, it's going too long, and then you just like get a little distracted. So banks are really important when it comes to when we're talking about who's going to spend $110 million, 110 million shillings on a thing and why. Nationalization of the banks, of insurance, and of the few industries affected was important, but much more important is whether we succeed in expanding our economy without expanding the opportunities and the incentives for the human exploitation. Once again, this really means that socialism has to spread in the rural areas where our people live, and this we have to take advantage of over many other countries. Just because of our lack of development, up to now, exploitation in agriculture is very limited. The greater part of our farming is still individual peasant farming or family farming, but although this is not capitalist, neither is it very efficient or productive in comparison to what it could be. Indeed, it is true that where people work together in groups, and that is mostly in those restricted sectors of capitalist farming, there is often a greater output per worker and per acre. Our objective must be to develop in such a manner as to ensure that the advantages of modern knowledge and modern methods are achieved, but without the spread of capitalism. So what he's saying is this, that like group farming, collective farming is more productive than individual peasant farming or family farming, right? But it runs the risk of becoming capitalist. And again, like my thing is that I don't think he should have been so against capitalism as much as, or like he should have been so loose with the term exploitation, But because he was, like, it might have impeded the economy. And I think he probably figures this out later in life. Or not that he figures it out later in life, but he does look back at his bureaucratic limitations on the socialists. On the economy, and like that's a thing, right? So I think I might be able to like pull up that page. I'll see. Hold on a second. So human equality, the essence of socialism. So socialism, however, is not simply a matter of methods of production. They are part of it, but not all of it. The essence of socialism is the practical acceptance of human equality. That is to say, every man's equal right to a decent life before any individual has a surplus above his needs. See what I'm saying? A surplus before his needs. So every equals man to a decent life. So you want that before any individual has a surplus. But then, like, what is decent? His equal right to participate in the government and his equal responsibility to work and contribute to the society in the limits of his ability, Now, again, what does that mean for people who are not? Because, like, he's frugal, so he's okay with it. But what does it mean to people who are not frugal? Like, what does it mean for the drug addict? In Tanzania, this means that we must safeguard and strengthen our democratic procedures. And see, me personally, I don't mind the drug addict. I don't mind the person who likes to dance. I don't mind the person who likes to party. It's just not me. But if you're a person who doesn't like to party, who doesn't, so on and so forth, and then you're forming a government on the basis that, like the people who don't, like, you know, the people who like luxuries and so on and so forth, right, are whatever, then, you know, that's a thing. You know, I could say this, in fact, I'll tell you this. There's this woman who was, you know, flirting with me or whatever, and she's like, hey, I like luxuries. You know, I want to go on vacations and shit, and I don't do that shit. But the thing is that, like, yeah, some people like that stuff. Some people like the, you know, the expensive hotels. You know what I mean? They like, you know, the so many hundreds of dollars a night. They like all that shit, and some people just don't care for it. But the economy does, like the economy, at least in the West, does facilitate for both groups. You know. So like me, I would go to the Airbnb. Somebody else would go to the 10, you know, the glass, you know, the mirror on the ceiling type shit. You know what I mean? It is what it is. In Tanzania, this means that we must safeguard. And I think what I'm saying is that, like, if a frugal person is trying to organize an economy that kind of subdues the luxury minded people, then it's probably not going to work out as you think. Because some people just would like the luxury. Now, you could, you know, socialize people to not like luxury, but that would take generations. You know what I mean? And I don't know if there's really an example of that, realistically. In Tanzania, this means that we must safeguard and strengthen our democratic procedures. We must get... I want to continue with that point in the sense of, like, the Frankenstein thing. Like, there's this book called Native Son by Richard Wright. And he's like, realistically, just having these, like, he's like this, the protagonist is Bigger Thomas, and Bigger Thomas just seeing an airplane fly over his head, he got dreams of becoming a pilot, and he hated the discrimination against black people becoming pilots, you know, at the time, you know. So it's just like you can't really control that that luxury sense, because even like I saw somebody like, I think it's parachuting, like bungee jumping. I said I wouldn't do that shit, but it looks interesting. And like to like I wouldn't do that shit because I don't trust no motherfucker like that. But but I could see some people being like, well, why can't I do that? Why can't we do that? Why don't we have this as a people? And then like just the government being like, no, you have your food, you have your clothing, you have your shelter, like continue, right? And there's like so much other things available in life, and we just don't allow anybody to do that. It's probably going to be like somebody from the West could easily offer you those sort of things, and that's like countless examples of our people suffering because of it, you know, or our people being bought, like the Frankenstein issue, where our people are just being bought off of, well, you know what, you can now own a car, you can own a Lamborghini, you know. In Tanzania, this means that we must safeguard and strengthen our democratic procedures. We must get to the position where every citizen plays an active and direct role in the government of the local community at the same time as he plays a full role in the government of his own country. It also means that we have to correct the glaring income differentials which we inherited from colonialism and ensure that the international imbalance between the wages of factory and service workers on the one hand and of agricultural workers on the other is not reproduced within our own nation. We have, in other words, to ensure that every person gets a return commensurate with the contribution he makes to the society. So again, you know, this is going to be a little bit too forced. But at the same time, we have to make dignified provisions for those whose age or disability prevents them from playing a full role in the economy. And I completely agree with this. Like, again, he's a really good person. We have also to spread, although it can only be done gradually, equality of opportunity for all citizens until every person is able to make the kind of contribution to our needs which is most within his capacity and his desires. And I like that too. Most of all, we have to reactivate the philosophy of cooperation in production and sharing in distribution. Ah, man, I thought I was ending. Which was an essential part of a traditional African society. How freaking long is this thing? Okay, that's the end of it. Okay, let me see. Let me make sure. Yeah, okay. The next one's long, so I'm going to try to like really not like limit my comments for tomorrow if I'm reading tomorrow. She says, change through growth. I started this afternoon by saying that the Arusha Declaration is a statement of intent. I hope I have made clear what is intended, and I have at least indicated some of the implication of this. As I close, however, I want to stress two things. The first is that the Arusha Declaration lays down a policy of evolution by evolution. We shall become a socialist, self-reliant society through our growth. We cannot afford the destruction of the economic instruments we now have, nor a reduction in our present output. The steps by which we move forward must take account of these things. Our change will therefore be affected almost entirely by the emphasis of our new development and by the gradual conversion of existing institutions into others more in accordance with our philosophy. The other thing is that the Arusha Declaration is a general outline. The policy paper, Education for Self-Reliance, was an interpretation of its meaning in one field. There'll be other papers of other aspects of our development, but the scope for individual initiative within this framework is almost unlimited. We need people, especially in rural areas, who accept the underlying doctrines of the Arusha Declaration and who are both willing and able to work with and to lead their fellow citizens in the promotion of socialist growth. If we have enough people who are purposeful and dedicated in this manner, we shall succeed. So just to learn from our ancestors, he's like, look, the important thing is that we have an outline that we're communicating and recruiting people off of. Arusha Declaration. So and look how involved the Arusha Declaration is, and then let's do our own. You know, when I talk about, you know, this book that I want to pass around in Africa or something, like maybe I should also have like a small ass, cheap ass declaration that's just short enough for people to consume, and all that kind of stuff, right? And you notice he wrote it in Swahili originally, which is like, this guy is so good. Because even if I'm going to write something, it's going to be in freaking English. And it's stupid. It's freaking stupid. I hate it. Anyway, the real question, therefore, is whether each of us is prepared to accept the challenge of building a state in which no man is ashamed of his poverty and the light of another's affluence. And no man has to be ashamed of his affluence. There you go. And the light of another's poverty. Are we prepared to build a society in which all men can treat with others on terms of complete equality in the spirit of free cooperation? Every one of us has to give the answer to this, but for young people, there's a special responsibility. For educated young people, there's a special temptation too, because in a capitalist society, they would be the ones most likely to attain privilege at the expense of others. I believe that the young people of Tanzania, educated and uneducated alike, have accepted this challenge. Carrying it through will not always be easy, nor always in every respect popular. In order to do it, it is necessary that there should be a total understanding and acceptance of the objectives of the philosophy of the Arusha Declaration, so that disappointments can be withstood and personal difficulties overcome. There has to be a recognition that there is a job to be done, which will often be difficult and often demand the renunciation of personal comfort. It will offer in return the challenge and the satisfaction of contributing to the building of a socialist society for the benefit of our children and grandchildren. All right, that's it. Oh wait, let me see. Nah, Tanzania, you wildin'. Okay, so what do I do? What do I do? I think I usually read the last few comments with my book in the background, so I'm gonna do that. We're gonna just do that. We're gonna be like those people, right? So this is my book in the background. For you guys don't know, I didn't introduce myself before. I'm Onitaset to some people. I read books. I plan on writing more and all that kind of stuff. Tanzan says, gotta fight for your right to bungee. Nah, I'm good with that. But I understand if people want to. I understand if Askari want to. Okay? Well, we're gonna be frugal with the rope, right? We're gonna be frugal with the rope, you know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? Just like make sure that rope don't break. Nah, I'm just messing. Oh man, that'd be cruel, don't it? Shit, I said that. I don't know if these white boys are gonna have something like that planned for me, right? They're gonna be like, oh, I heard you like damn, I don't know. Oh, I heard you like Kilimanjaro. I'm like, shit. Anyway, Taz says, I like his emphasis on the rural areas, which are often ignored in favor of development. You know, I'm actually the opposite, honestly. I was actually telling somebody I wanted to go to Africa and do some industrial work. They're like, yeah, I have the same dream, except I want to go to Africa and do agriculture. And I'm like, we all want to go to Africa and do agriculture. But I feel like, you know, we really neglecting on the manufacture. Tanzan says, and the challenge to and responsibilities of the youth. Yeah, Tanzan has a presentation on that, on the youth stuff. So, you know, hopefully we'll get to hear her later. So you guys make sure you guys go subscribe to Tanzan's channel. I'm going to ask Brother Bakari Tanzan Forecast to give us a 10-second clip of their voice promoting their podcast so that we can play it in the collective thing. And that would just be cool. But other than that, that seems like all the comments. So thanks, fam. You guys see the book in the background. You see the picture in the background. You know what it is. So other than that, I guess I'm just gonna say Shem Hotep, Anku Ja Seneb Neb, Amen, Ma'at, Dua Necher.